Hello, hello.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Tuesday Live podcast, where today we are going to talk about how to buy real estate with only $100 down.
100. So if that sounds like something you are interested in hearing more about, make sure that you get your notepad ready and take some notes because, guys, this is a real deal. We share actual experiences, how we're helping sellers, how we're able to really make profit in our real estate investing business and not owe a ton of money to a ton of people because, quite honestly, we haven't had to borrow any money.
Right. And I know that when we go to meetups and we're talking to other investors, sometimes over the phone, and we're talking about, buying real estate, and I hear the same common thing is, they're putting down 20% and they're running out of money because all of the money they have, once they find the right property, they come up with the 20% plus closing costs, and it really slows down how you can scale and build an empire. And it gets to be frustrating. So when we go to these meetups and we're talking about how we buy with what's called creative finance, that's really buying real estate without using banks, without using your credit. And many of our deals we're doing is with only $100 down. So if you're hearing that, that is not a mistake, $100 down. Now, are there more costs to the deal than that? Sure there is. You got to come up with closing costs. Well, Joe, that's not $100 down. Well, yeah, it is. It's still $100 down. It's not 20% down, but you got to come up with some closing costs. That varies depending on the price of the house and where you are closing on the property. You're going to have to get an insurance policy too. But there are many of these deals that we're buying where we are direct to seller, talking with a seller, and we buy these deals with $100 down. So when you're thinking like, how is this possible, right? What kind of seller even goes for this stuff?
You'd be surprised. Actually, quite a few of them do. And it's all in the questions that you ask. And I think that was something really, truly, I had a hard time in the very beginning getting my mind wrapped around, like, why would somebody want to sell this way? Traditionally, you need to put this huge chunk down. You have to go to the banks. You have to borrow all the money. And in reality is, if you just ask the handful of questions, and it may not happen in the first time through, you may actually have to carry the conversation a few times through, follow up with your seller, but you're just trying to solve their problem. And especially in this day and age where people want instant gratification, they'll find that sometimes you're able to help them a little bit quicker than them having to wait months on market to find a buyer.
That's true. Wait a second. I thought that only worked on YouTube videos.
No. And, again, like you said, it's $100 down to the seller. And so when you see deals floating around, there might be like a $70,000 entry fee. And that's because the seller needs a lot of money down. And sometimes those deals, they don't end up going through because it's just too big of a cost to get into them. It has to make sense through and through.
So we're going to teach you today, and we're going to discuss where to find these deals, how to negotiate these deals, and how to get them yourself, right? And that's what it's about. So if you're listening, make sure you check us out on Creative Finance Playbook and all the Spotify and Apple, all the podcast channels, YouTube, same thing, guys. And if you're not in our Creative Finance Playbook Facebook group yet, it's a free group, join it. And there's tons of great stuff being dropped in there all of the time. But the best place, check us out on all the podcasts, give us a like, give us a review. But today we're going to drop some golden nuggets. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go over, first of all, where to find these deals, right? And I could tell you the first place to find them is not on the MLS. Why is that? Well, because if a house is listed on the MLS, there's going to be a realtor involved. They're going to want a commission, right? You still have to negotiate with the seller some terms down. And when you have somebody negotiating with the seller on your behalf, because that's what the realtor does, they're that person in the middle, you don't always get the greatest terms. We've done a deal $100 down on the MLS, but we still had to come up with the real estate commission. The seller only got $100, but we did have to pay that realtor commission and some closing costs. So your cost of entry into that deal is a lot higher. So how do we find them? Guys, we get direct seller off-market leads. We talked about this many times of how to get these leads for free, how to get these incoming warm leads who are reaching out to you for absolute free. And then that's how you're going to get it. You got to go direct to seller. So if you don't know how to do that already, and I know we've shared it, go to our website, creativefinanceplaybook.com, and download it. There's the free marketing thing that we do. and the 10 magic questions that we ask every single seller. And if you don't already have that, go get it. creativefinanceplaybook.com. It's up there. Just go download it and do what it says. You're going to have people virtually raising their hand to you saying, I have a property I want to sell. And here's the same 10 questions that we ask every seller to get them to give us all the right information. And they give us the offer in those questions. So that's the best part. And then you could target anywhere in the country. So does this work in, Albuquerque, New Mexico? Does it work in old Rochester, New York? Does it work in California or Georgia or the state of Washington or even Washington, D.C.? It works everywhere, guys. And it's super easy to do. So next thing you got to do, first thing covered, go direct to seller, find people who are reaching to you, and you can have those conversations. The next step is ask them the right questions, right? And that's what we talk about in the 10 questions that we ask these sellers, right? And in their questions that we ask, we're finding out what type of situation do they have going on, right? Sometimes, like, I went to a property today. I did it. First time in about a year.
You did go.
And I usually don't go. We do it all virtually. But then this one was close by. Sellers were in a situation. And on this one, going to the house, I thought would be a little bit of an advantage, and it proved to be. But most of the time, I'm dealing directly with seller, and then we're negotiating. Now, the thing I'm going to say right now might be earth-shattering some of you, but I promise it's not. You just have to look at yourself in the mirror and say it about 10, 20 times with confidence. And it's not what you say, it's how you say it, but it's also what you're going to say. So when I'm talking with the seller and I say, if I'm paying your price, I typically buy with no money down, okay? Now, when I say that, I'm not asking the question, I'm more of making a statement, okay? And I'm doing it with conviction in my voice. So when I'm asking that seller and we're having the conversation about me buying their house, we're negotiating. I'm the buyer. I want to offer them some terms, but I'm only going to offer them the ones that I can do. And I could do a deal with $100 down if I'm paying closing costs. So if you're talking with the seller, what I've noticed most times people say, what happens if I give you 10% down or 20% down? And how many times have you hear where if you offer them 20% down, they're going to even want more sometimes. So I think it's really good to anchor that to $100 down. I've got a message that we're going on with a seller right now, and he wanted 50% down. And I just said, hey, John, we would pay that price for your house and cover all the closing costs and fees, but I need to buy it for, no money down to make that deal work. And so now I'm anchoring it. Now, are there times where we buy deals with more than $100 down?
We have one right now.
How much money are we buying that one?
To the seller,
yeah,
they did need $10,000.
$10,000. The property price was how much?
230 something.
So 230 something. So if you look at how much we're putting down in that deal, guys, it's still a very small percentage. We're not even close to 10% down, right? We're 5% down, even a little bit under 5% down on that deal.
And the only reason we are doing that deal is because then we're offering it rent to own, and we're going to be able to get close to $20,000 to $30,000 back to get paid for the deal. But we're going to be talking about that later tonight.
What do you mean? Talk about that later tonight.
We have a rent to own webinar happening tonight. So if you're listening and you want that recording because maybe you missed it, just message us over at Creative Finance Playbook. But yeah, so it really depends deal by deal. But there are plenty of times where I can think of sellers were just like, and I know our clients even say this, when there's a motivated seller, it is so easy. It is almost scary how they're, yes, let's go. I'm going to okay the paperwork, sign me up, send it to title, let's rock. And it really can be that simple. It just depends on the situation and the seller's motivation level. And a lot of times I can think of where they were already packing their bags and they've already moved out and they've had no equity. That kind of seems to be like a little key there, because a lot of times investors are looking for the fixer-uppers, the rehab properties, the ones that need a lot of work, but the beautiful turnkey houses that people just bought, and so there's zero equity at stake, those sellers literally just walk away. But that said, I know we do have some where they had $60,000 of equity and still were willing to wait 30 years with $100 down. So the point is, you just have to ask the questions and stop flapping your lips.
Wow. And you could see you're dropping some fire right now because the comment section is going like completely wild. But I mean, that's right on the point. You have to be dealing with motivated sellers.
Yeah.
And just because every motivated seller you talk to they still might not do that, but there's more than enough that will.
Mhm.
And I know many times they're going to say, okay, Jen, well, that only works if they don't have any equity, but that doesn't work on people that have a whole bunch of equity, or that doesn't work on somebody who has a free and clear house, does it?
Well, then you just go back to Henry Ford. Whether you think you can or you think you can, you're right. Can't or can. But the point is, it's like all in our head. So if you can just wipe clean any thought that you've had before of this is the way it's got to be, this is the way it's always done. Everyone else always gives 3-part offers. We're going to give you this offer. We're going to give you that offer, and take it or leave it. Like what? What does that even mean? Right? Like ask the seller, what is the least amount you'd need? Like I typically buy with no money down. Okay. Well, no, that's not okay. So then what is the least that you would need? Right? Instead of saying like, I'll give you $30,000, I'll give you $20,000, if we truly find out like what is the motivating factor, because if they haven't sold their house and they really need to, and the only way you can make it work and you have honest conversations, I think that's what it all comes back to, is having the genuine spirit of truly helping people, having integrity, and knowing like I'm here to do the right thing, but it's got to make sense, right? Like if you're an investor, you're in this to make money, and that's okay. Like don't be ashamed to say that, to own that. Like you're not a nonprofit, but at the end of the night, like if you can feel great about the business that you're running and the people that you're helping, success is a good night's sleep.
Boom. Well, and that's really true. And that's why I look at a deal. Like we're looking at one right now. So I like to go over real world examples. It's great to talk about this in hypothetical situations.
That was her house. Mm-hmm.
So we have a seller and she wants to sell her house, and she just bought it November of 2021. This is in Florida, one of the suburbs of Tampa. It's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom, 2,400 square foot house. I got to say, I'm actually jealous because that garage is way bigger than ours.
What garage isn't? Let's be honest.
I know. We've got the world's. I mean, I can't say the world. It does fit.
I still don't think they fit 2 full-size SUVs.
There's no way. But either way, the seller, this house was built in 2006. The HOA is only $75 a month. They say it's a 2-car garage. So obviously it's bigger than ours. And they just bought it. So a little over 2.5 years ago, and they bought it for $354,000. So this is a property where the seller wants to sell it, and I could break down exactly like what kind of situation that they're in. So I'm not going to say her name, but I'm looking at pictures of the house. It doesn't need anything. If anything, maybe like a little bit of paint, and you could probably get away with that. The house is 18 years old. Anytime it's got high ceilings, got a nice kitchen. It's really turnkey.
And when did she come in?
So she came into our CRM. She reached out to us. So
CRM is just a fancy word for a place that we communicate with our sellers.
Mm-hmm.
So March 8th.
So March 8th of this year, 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath, with a big lot, master, laundry and first floor, about 2,400 square feet. New flooring installed 2021, new HVAC last year, new roof in 2023. They would like to rent, downsize, and move closer to his ex-wife to make it easier on their son. So this is the new wife that we're talking to, and obviously her new husband wants to move closer to the family, old family, but still son, and they want to move. They don't have a lot of equity in the house because they just bought it, and they want to sell it without paying commissions, without paying any of the fees and things like that, and they want an easy sale. So in this situation, they still have equity, not a ton, but this isn't some junker, guys. This is a beautiful house in a beautiful neighborhood, 4-bedroom house.
Cute dog.
Yeah, cute golden retriever. And all the big stuff is new in the last couple of years. So this seller right here we've talked about. Now she won't do $100 down. Not on that house she won't, but she will do $5,000 down.
Well, originally she was at another number though, right?
Yeah, it was higher. I think it was 30,000 in the beginning. Then she went down to 11, and then today she says she'll do it with $5,000 down.
Yeah,
let's make a deal, she said. So this is when you find a seller who they're not distressed. This isn't some junker property. This is somebody who wants a quick and easy sale. So why would they go for this?
Why wouldn't they?
Wow. Well, and this is the point, right? They've got a really low payment.
Well, anyone right now looking at the market, I mean, it's especially here in Florida, things are sitting. Now, if this were in Irondequoit, New York, might be a different story. But hey, we still have sellers up there talking to us too. So can't discount that. But in this market, for sure, if you're trying to time your sale, good luck. I mean, you used to maybe have some idea, but we're looking at, what did you say before? Like 6 months out, potentially?
You're looking at least 60 to 70 days on the market,
Mhm.
depending on condition and the location of the house.
And then on top of it, I'm seeing a lot of buyers backing out.
Yeah, well, this is the challenge where I think, especially in South Florida right now, you have a lot of times somebody wants to sell their house and they go talk to an agent and they price this thing so unrealistically sky high, they're not even close. There's a property that you and I have been covering now for a year and a half.
We should go live from.
Oh my gosh, we should go do a live from their driveway. But these people bought this house in 2021 for $620,000, no pool, decent community. They bought it for $620,000. You would think after owning it for just like 9 months, you would want to list it for maybe $650, maybe $695. No, they went all the way to $850. Did nothing to the house. They didn't even paint it, right? So they go to $850. Well, guess what? A year and a half later, the house is still in the market. These folks have already moved out. They've been making a $3,500 payment per month on this vacant house while making the new payment on their new house with a newborn baby. So they've got all of the reasons in the world to sell. Now they have it more realistically priced in the 600s, but it's still not selling.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that uncertainty in the market of, will my house sit? In some markets, they're still selling quickly. Some, they're a little bit slower right now. So I think if you price it fairly aggressive, they do sell quick, but then there's still the what if. So many times folks love working with us.
There's no aggressive pricing down here that I've seen.
No, they just want to price it to the sky. But this opportunity right here, one of the suburbs of Tampa, they're very realistic on what they want for it because it's what they bought it for. And they don't have much equity. They just want a quick, easy sale and be gone.
Mm-hmm, yeah. So in today's time, many are just wanting out. And, you know, it may take a few conversations to get to that point, but you also have to build that know, like, and trust. Like sometimes people just need a little bit of time to really like communicate with you, make sure you have an online presence, especially if you're doing this virtually. Like you were able to go to the house today, but you can't do that in every situation. So having a good built out system behind you that's totally free, Facebook pages, hello, just to really showcase your business, who you are, and how you're helping people.
Well, and I think that's key. Share what you do. So when somebody says like, Jen, how do I know I could trust you? Like, I don't even know you. Well, go check out my Facebook page where I'm on there discussing this all the time. So they could see you're a real person, that you're actually doing deals and you're talking about them and this is what you do. And I think it helps bridge that gap, right? That now I could get some history on you. So this is why we're very open about what it is that we do. And I think that's the key. But now we're running into a lot of situations where you call it the 2-year people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Especially, I don't know, it's because like we moved down here about 2 years ago, but I keep looking, I mean, who isn't on Zillow all the time, but it seems to be this like 2-year mark where in 2022, mass migration, everybody and Joe and Jen moved to Florida. And, you know, those who bought, and they bought at the peak, right? So they've got a pretty high purchase price that they locked themselves into there. And now, for whatever reason, 2 years in, they've discovered it's too hot. The hurricane season is a little bit much. Perhaps the insurance is gone a little crazy. The appraisal came back, so the taxes went higher because a lot of us may have thought like, oh, Florida's so much cheaper. But when you start factoring some of this stuff in, even down to car insurance, it's not. So, or maybe just the fact that you thought you wanted to move and you really end up missing your family. So lots of things happen, health, children, schools, you know, all the things really combined. We can't predict what happens. So we're really finding this 2-year, we should like term it something.
Jobs even.
Yeah.
Right? They came down, they had a job, they're doing remote work, and then their jobs call them back to the office, and now they have to move back to the state they came from.
And anyone who bought 2 years ago, like I said, like that high purchase price, and now they're trying to get more for it, but I'm watching where like it's still sitting on the market, and now they're basically asking what they bought it for.
Yeah. So we are in a market that's softening, which is the Tampa, Sarasota, Naples, Florida. That's happening. Jacksonville, Orlando, many of these places that's happening right now, but that's not the case everywhere.
No.
Right? Because we're also from upstate New York, where that market is still red hot. The houses there, because there's no inventory, insurance. My friend was complaining last night on the phone because his insurance went up from $800 a year to $1,100 a year.
Like house insurance?
His house insurance for the entire year went to $1,100. Where if you live in Florida, your house insurance, especially if you live closer to the water, it's probably $1,100 a month. So yeah, your insurance is way cheaper, but the houses up there are still selling for 50, 60, 70,000 over asking. They're having lines of people line up the streets looking at for an open house. There's multiple offers that come in, and they're still having that environment. So, that doesn't work there though, does it, Jen? Like, not in a market that's still like crazy red hot. There's no way people would do it there.
For sure they would.
Right.
For sure. It just depends on if you're talking to enough people. And then again, you're weeding out those who might not be super motivated, or maybe they want to go get over asking. So go get it. Otherwise, still continue on, and like, just don't assume anything. Like the second you're like making an assumption about a seller or a buyer or anything, you just kind of shot yourself in the foot. Yeah.
And let me help change the mindset here. We're going to go a slightly different direction. This is also put your head in the mindset of the seller. And we can do that because we sold our house 2 years ago. So when you talk about when you're dealing business with an investor, you have speed and convenience. We're able to buy as is. Take all the stuff that you want with you. And there's any like stuff or junk you don't want, like leave it behind, leave it in the house. Don't
trust
even move
us. When you sell with a realtor and then they bring in a buyer, they're not happy when you leave your dining room table behind.
Or they want everything absolutely perfect. Yeah, when we moved to Florida, we left this big, huge, gorgeous dining room table that we didn't get out in time. My friend came and got it a few days later, but they were a little grumpy about that.
Yeah, whereas you buy with us, we're like, we're just assuming as an investor, like I've got to line up a dumpster. Whether it's a hoarder house, I might need to fill that dumpster 7 times, or which we've done, or it's a one-time deal and we just kind of clean stuff out. But that's the beautiful thing of, because like the stuff that is the number one, is most surprising. After talking to all of our sellers through the years, is like the fact that they didn't know what to do with all of their stuff. They didn't want to take the time to emotionally and mentally go through all of it and decide, like, do I want to keep this? Do I want to get rid of it? And then just like the taxing, like physical energy of it all. Because again, like I emptied our house after 16 years or however long, 14, 15 years. You were there a little longer. It was a lot.
Yeah, so when I was on like my sales calls or working deals or on team meetings, I'd watch Jen walk out to this dumpster,
hauling
garbage bags. I'd listen to it go over, and I'd hear like things crashing and breaking. I'm like, I wonder what that was, right? But I didn't know, I didn't see it, and I actually like it better that we have less stuff.
And we donated a lot too.
Oh yeah,
for sure. But again, like that took a lot of time to what can we donate? What is just straight up garbage that for some reason we're hanging on to? And so your sellers they're stuck in that mindset of, who's going to help me? Because what if it is just one person by herself, or if it's just a husband and wife and they don't have the money to hire movers, they don't have people to help them get out, like you literally can be someone's knight in shining armor, and you have actually been called that several times.
Hey, you're going to go talk about that in here? Tell them what we do off late. Hey, never
me, no. I remember a seller literally said that you're my knight in shining armor.
Yep. But that's the case. So we have one right now, a situation. A woman and her husband passed away. She inherited the house. She's just there by herself. She's overwhelmed with the amount of stuff that she's got to deal with right now. Just even also doing with the loss of her husband, the financial strain that puts on, needing to sell the house, and then there's stuff all over.
Yeah.
Right. So if you really think about their situation, it could be really taxing and overwhelming and super stressful. So if you remember, there was those old commercials where you could just slap that big red easy button, right? And you make it easy. Like that's what you want to offer. So buying it as is, right? That carries a ton of weight. So compared to getting your house market ready, cleaning all of the stuff out, then putting on the market, then have people trampling through your house. Sometimes it sells quickly. Sometimes it's months later, if not these crazy people in Florida, it's a year and a half later, it's still available. So imagine what that's got to be like. And living like that. So when we had to show our house, when we lived in it, every single time there was a showing, we had to pack up the kids. We had to pack up the dog. We had to put the dog in the car. Then we had to go drive around. Is it for half an hour? Is it for an hour? Now there's 2 showings and there's an hour in between. So like, where do we go? What do we do? There's only so many times you want to take the dog and everybody at the park just to get back and then go back again. So it gets to be really taxing on somebody. So if we just put our mindset into what it's like, that's a big, huge, why would people do it? That's big one right there.
Yeah, and like we do this for a living, and it was still taxing on us. And so you have to remember too, like if you're an investor, you're eat, sleep, breathe, like you just know this business inside and out. For a homeowner, like they aren't thinking like us at all. And even when we are investors and we had to move and sell our house traditionally, like even right down to like the photos. I remember we were like, oh, we'll just go hang outside, and then it started pouring rain, so we're all huddled in the garage while the photographer's going around the house. And
I forgot all about that.
Yeah, well, you were probably doing deals, Mucko Island. Shout out, Brittany. So it's a lot. And just for, those little things that we take for granted as investors, like those mean the world to sellers. So just again, like coming from a place of love, trying to help them out, compassion, and understanding like the situation that they're in, especially if with some of these seller financing deals, creative financing, they might be falling behind on their mortgages. So like legit $100 down, but maybe you have to catch up a payment or two.
Yeah.
So kind of you can think about that. So that's another reason where a seller might say, yeah, like I'll totally take the $100 just to bind the agreement. But man, can you help me catch up my 2 payments I'm behind on so I don't, lose the house, my credit doesn't get banged up? Like that's a really great reason for someone to say, like, I don't have any reason to take more money. Like I just want out of this debt relief.
Well, and you hit it spot on, and that covers that whole aspect of it. The other side of it is what happens when somebody maybe just inherited a house where it's not just your stuff. You've got all your parents' stuff or aunts or uncles, or, you inherited a house and there's all of the stuff inside. And I want to go over one of our clients did, actually. Not even a Joe and Jenn deal. One of our clients had a seller reach out to them because they inherited a home and it had a bunch of stuff in there. And everybody was giving them cash offers of $35,000 for the property. It was a nice house. It just had a lot of stuff in the inside. They really wanted $70,000. So our client bought that deal for $70,000, $100 down. That's right, $100 down. They negotiated a $300 a month payment with a 0% interest for a 10-year term on there, right? So
what state was that in?
Iowa.
I thought so. Okay.
And then they turn around and put a rent-to-own person in there at, I think, 110 or 120 price, because I think that's market value for the property. And the key for the seller was with doing it with seller financing and only getting $100 down. So they didn't get the big check up front, but they're doubling their money on that if they could be flexible in the time. And for them, they're trying to get it sold quick. They're trying to get it sold easy and for the highest amount possible. So if I can create a win where our client still got an excellent deal on the property, but she made it so easy. So she bought that deal $100 down. She said there was $1,500 in closing costs. She said her and her boyfriend went and did the clean out of all the stuff inside of it.
There was one where she didn't even have to do the clean out. And I don't know if it was that one or not, where literally she lined up the rent to own buyer and they bought it as is. And it was kind of a hoarder house.
Was it that one?
I think so. I could be wrong, but there was a deal where she just lined everything up and they were going to clean it out, but they didn't even have to. So
I got to find out. So I know one she did that to and one she didn't. Maybe I have it backwards.
No, I don't. You probably remember better than I do. But that's another possibility where you might not even have to clean out the house. Like somebody else find the right buyer, they're ready to rock. Mm-hmm. They'll fix the deck. They'll take care of everything.
So that's really the key for if you're trying to scale your real estate business. If you're trying to come up with 20% down plus closing costs plus the insurance policy. Right. And that's not including, are you going to do anything to the property now that you bought it? Are you going to paint anything, change any flooring? Is there any updates that you're going to do? That just puts more money out of your pocket into the project. Mm-hmm. So if you're able to buy these deals for $100 down, cover some closing costs, put the same insurance policy on there, it's not 20% down. So with that ability, we can get into way more deals. And part of our fund strategy that we're going to dive into tonight, rent to own, where our renters are giving us $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 and even more sometimes to move into these beautiful houses. Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of times where we're actually getting paid to buy the house without using credit. So if you want to learn how to do the rent to own part and come tonight to our event, how would they even do that?
Yeah, creativefinanceplaybook.com. You could certainly text Joe. He can give you his phone number. Hit me up on Instagram. Check out our Facebook, Jennifer Delle Fave, Joe Delle Fave. The link's all over. You do have to do a little register just so we can make sure everybody's got the right link there for it. But we're going to just do it for a group tonight. And then, like I said, we'll have the recording. So if you can't make it, no worries. Just message us.
Is that going to be on Zoom?
It's we use StreamYard now, so I record it there.
Cool. Easy peasy, guys. So
Yeah.
make sure you get the link so you don't miss out. What time are we doing that?
We are doing it tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern, and it'll probably go for about an hour. And we're going to talk about the 3 big ways that you get paid with rent to own.
Yay.
Yeah.
So 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Guys, you don't want to miss this. We're going to, if you've got any questions, we're going to cover them all. And we've got some dynamite things. This is something that really changed our whole business. So once we learned and got out of the old-fashioned way of buying and putting a huge amount of money down or even burring, in 2016, when we were at the bank and we were trying to burr out of one of our properties, which we were refinancing after we just bought one that was a fixer-upper. We did all these renovations. We were going to refinance, pull all of our cash back out. That's when the bank told me that they limit you on 10 mortgages.
Yeah.
So that's when we had to figure out some other strategy if we were to scale. And when we found out back in 2016 that we could buy houses this way, oh my gosh, it changed everything. So our very first deal, I'm going to go over that one, guys. The very first deal that we did, which was called Creative Finance, we had a seller who inherited his grandfather's house. When he wanted to sell it, he owned it free and clear. He had some sentimental value into the house. He didn't want to take a low cash offer because it wasn't a junker. And this was the first house that Jen and myself looked at that we were going to buy as an investment property that wasn't a junker. So when we negotiated the deal, he was kind of set on his price. And we were able to get to that price because we bought it with $100 down. He gave us a 0% mortgage and a $500 a month payment on a turnkey house 10 minutes from where we lived in New York. So once we did that deal, that's when really everything came. We're like, oh my gosh, can't believe we did it. The second deal we did the same way. A seller had a mortgage on our house. And that's when we learned what a wrap is. Some people you could buy it, close on it, own it, but the loan stays in the seller's name. When we did that deal, same thing. We paid $100 down to the seller and a few thousand in closing costs, which I think was about $3,500 on that deal. And we owned another house. We still owned that house a long time ago. So once we figured out that strategy and then we paired that with the rent to own, which was the craziest summer ever of 2017.
Still need a shirt. I survived 2017.
Yeah, that was where we had all these single family homes and we realized that we're going to not rent anymore. We're going to turn them all to rent to own. And so all of our renters left that summer when we didn't renew their leases. We gave them plenty of notice, but we were also looking for rent to own people and we did all of that. So we changed over all of our portfolio into rent to own. Plus we are now buying with Creative Finance. So it was all the craziest summer and we survived it. So
plus you were working crazy hours at a dealership.
And we had a 2-year-old,
2-year-old and 4-year-old.
and a 4-year-old and had all this stuff going on.
And zero help other than paid nannies.
Yes.
From time to time. So you can find the time if you have the burning desire. So this was the end goal, to be able to work together full time. And here we are years later. But yeah, we'll definitely dive into rent to own. And there are so many little nuances that you'd be shocked that people aren't doing correctly. So we're going to definitely dive deep into that tonight. So make sure that if it's a strategy that you want to be used, attention is in the details, both when buying and with selling. And I don't know if it was the teacher in me, but I am a stickler, but you are too. Just like really, really, really important to cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure that you are, playing by the rules and doing the right thing and setting everybody up for success. Because there's nothing worse than having something wrong in the paperwork.
Well, and the thing is this too, is using all of our superpowers. Like we learned all this stuff, right, guys? That's why we're all here listening. We learned how to help people, right? It's not about just making a check. You help people, you're going to get paid. Some you do, some you don't. You're still here to help people. And the more people you can help, you will get more checks that way too. So we really focus on how can we help this seller out in a situation that's good for them, it's good for us, and everybody's happy. And when you're able to create these wins, and many times that's why we love Creative Finance, is because I don't have to give them some lowball offer. When we first got into real estate investing, like many other folks, we were looking for these junk houses that need a lot of work, that we can make them beautiful again and get that one ugly house in a beautiful neighborhood and make it nice. And the neighbors always loved us. I mean, all of the time. So it was wonderful to do that and then put a family in there. But once we learned how to also do that with these beautiful houses too, because when somebody back in the day would say, Joe, I have a turnkey house and I've already moved and it's empty. If I couldn't get it at a big discount, I threw those leads in the garbage. Right? Because I was only looking for junkers. So when we have people who have these nice houses and we could buy them with terms, especially with only $100 down, I like that way more.
Mm-hmm.
We're not having to deal with the contractors.
And that's a hard thing to let go of too. I know so many people like are hands-on and they're fixing and flipping, and there is something awesome about bringing an old home and restoring it to beautiful again. And you can sprinkle those throughout in your investing journey, but when you literally can buy a turnkey property with $100 down to the seller, you pay closing costs, and then you can turn around and find a rent-to-own buyer and put them in, and you're actually making money. It almost is like it's almost too easy in some, and of course life is life, right? You have things that pop up here and there, but for the most part, this strategy, it's almost mind-boggling how simple it is.
Mm-hmm. So sellers, I think we covered that. All the different situations. We've only covered a handful. There's a whole gigantic list of why sellers are needing to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference right off the bat, direct to sellers, get off market leads. I think those are where you're going to find your very best deals. Number two, make two different categories, right? Find the motivated people who actually have a real estate problem that we could help and put them into a special category and focus a lot of time on them. Somebody who many times, the seller's best bet is just to go list it on the market, right? Because if they need top dollar and they need all cash and they can't wait for terms or things like that, well, then they should list it, especially those turnkey houses. But you talk to the motivated sellers, the ones that we're dealing with, and many times they have a lot of equity. So I know one of the questions that I hear often is, well, a seller might do that with no equity, but the ones with the big equity, they won't. And that's just absolutely not true. And I want to kind of just rule that out. There's many of these times where a seller has a large amount of equity and we're buying it with still $100 down. I'm not even paying monthly payments to their equity because maybe I've taken over their mortgage payment, but we're coming up with a term length of when I have to give them the rest of their money, right? And I've had sellers, I know what you're going to think, well, Joe, they're not going to want to wait a long time for their money. I've had some sellers give me 7-8 years. I've had some give me 30 years to get them cashed out. 30 years, have 60, 70,000 left in the deal, and they're willing to wait because we're able to solve their problem. And that was their biggest concern, really wasn't getting that equity. Maybe it was getting this house off their books or getting this monthly payment off their back because it's crippling them. Mm-hmm. So that's why when you talk about Becky, the one up in Buffalo, New York, she has a turnkey house. It's nice, although a squatter did move in there, but she's moving out soon.
Yeah.
But she has a lot of equity. She owes about half of what the house is worth. And she's willing to wait because, more importantly, she needs to get that monthly payment off of her back. So in that situation, quick, easy, take over her payment, solve her problem immediately, and know that there's a finish line. I think she gave us a 7-year term on that one.
I think you have to talk to her. Yeah. I don't remember exactly.
I gotta look at the paperwork, but that's what it was. So these are some golden nuggets, guys. So get yourself some motivated sellers.
Yeah.
Go get our script, go get all that stuff, go put it to action, start talking to some sellers, find out who the motivated sellers are. Here's going to be the next step. You actually have to talk to people, right? You got to be able to ask them a few questions. Like, if we pay that price, I typically buy with no money down. Okay. Some of you will be terrified. I know the first time I watched somebody use that line, and I was like, oh my God, they asked a question. And I was like, so shocked. And guess what? Everybody lived. Nothing happened. Nobody got hurt. Just simply asked a question. And so once we started implementing that, that's when we got away from, I need $80,000 down. I need $50,000 down. And there's many times where we've moved people very close to zero down when they started way higher.
Well, even this lady, I mean, right now she's at what, 5? You wait another month, like, would she get 0? You just don't know. Or if you even have that conversation with her, I don't know if it's haven't had yet. Like, what does she need 5 for?
I think they need help moving out.
Okay.
I think that's what it was.
You just never know.
Like, yeah. Some don't need it.
Ask the questions. What is it that you need the money for?
Oh, you're dropping some nuggets.
It seems so simple, right? Like, we want to overly complicate everything because that's what us thinker brains do. We just want to like make all the reasons why it won't work, all the reasons why it can't work. Stop letting your brain do that and just focus to asking the set of questions and getting the answers and see if you can make it work.
And I got to say, this isn't anything that we invented. Mm-mm. This has been going on for decades and decades. So it's been proven to work before Joe and Jen got into the picture.
And less is always more. Because when we first started, you are a talker, but you sharpened your...
What do you mean?
You were giving real estate courses to the sellers back in the day.
So we would get a lot of questions, right? And so I figured let's give them a real estate course, right, over the phone of exactly how this works. So I'm going to give you some, I'm going to go against the grain a little bit and say what not to do. Don't say I'm buying your house with creative finance. Don't say I'm buying your house with a wrapped mortgage. Don't say I'm buying your house subject to. Don't say any of that stuff, guys. That is the worst mistake you can make, because most of you investors don't even know what that stuff means. So what do you think a seller who doesn't do this every day, they're going to have no clue what that means. So when you try to overly complicate it, and by saying all of these terms that are very, they're for the industry, many people outside of the industry don't understand these. And when you make it confusing, most of the time they're going to say no, because I don't understand. So simplifying is, I'm going to buy your house. I'm going to buy it with seller financing. I'm going to close on it. The loan's going to stay in your name, and I'm going to take over making that payment on your behalf. Right. And then I typically buy with no money down. Okay. Simple questions to ask. I don't want to say, well, if I buy it with a wraparound mortgage and then I blah, 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 it gets to be too confusing. And you know what? I let lawyers do what they do, and they do closings. I let them cross all the T's and dot the I's, and we get the best ones that can do these for us and be very transparent with the seller what's happening. So really breaking it down to what a 10th grade level for your seller is key, is truly key. And just being a human being, try to actually legitimately help these people. If you buy a bad deal, you're not helping your seller. If you get into a bad deal because you overpaid for it or your payment's too high, because now you're putting your financial burden on you. So you have to make it a deal that's beneficial for you and the seller, but create these wins. And this is the point. It doesn't work for everybody, but there are people out there who will do these deals. And there's more of these people out there who will do these deals than there are people looking for them.
Ring that bell.
If I ring it, they're not going to hear it. We got this microphone that mutes all loud sounds. But if I could ring the bell right now, guys, because I got one, it'd be dinging galore.
Awesome. So, all right. Well, we got some great questions coming in here. I just want to throw up a couple up here. But yeah, some folks listening right now, don't say I'm going to use a land trust and list you as the first beneficiary. Not something you want to say on your closing call.
Yay. Good point. That's exactly right. I don't get into any of that stuff. I just say, I'm buying it. I'll close on it, pay the costs and fees, and then the loan's going to stay in your name.
Yep.
Till I get it cashed out.
Yep. And then we do have, could you say, would you take monthly payments?
Sure.
Yeah, that's keeping it simple, right? Like explaining seller financing. Would you be open to taking monthly payments?
Yeah, and that's exactly what we did with Steve. Our first deal, free and clear property. I just said, Steve, I'll pay you, but I'm going to pay you monthly payments. Instead of paying Bank of America every month, we're going to call it Bank of Steve, because his name was Steve, and we'll just pay Bank of Steve every month. And he was like, got it.
Steve loved being the bank.
He was getting that check.
And I was writing him checks, guys. So there's that before I discovered bill pay.
So we're going to talk about how long ago we were doing that back when you were writing checks.
He still was happy to receive those. But yeah, and then Jeremy has a question here. Would you still be open to doing JV in flyover states?
So flyover states are probably those little states that you never really stopped to vacation in.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not picking on like Alabama, but I don't know a lot of
Some people like to
vacation in Alabama.
I don't know. Mississippi, I think my friend likes
vacation. What are you doing in Alabama for? I mean, I'm not hating on Alabama. I'm sure it's a beautiful place.
Or like the Kentucky.
But there's not many people I'd imagine who.
Well, yeah. If you've got a deal, you know where to find us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Send it over. We'll take a peek, see if there's anything we could do. Yeah, Caleb, it happens, right? Like we're taught to overthink and to really get into analysis paralysis. So you have to fight through it and take that action. Thank you for being here, Brent. And we've got, do you find that normally properties that don't cash flow well ordinarily suddenly work for rent to own? I'm not going to like this answer.
So maybe yes, maybe no.
Probably no.
If it doesn't cash flow, me as an investor need it to cash flow to make sense, right? Unless I'm buying it for long-term appreciation, things like that, which I'm not a huge fan of. But many times if they're a direct homeowner, they don't care about cash flow. They just look to get into a beautiful property. So there's some times where maybe we don't take the deal, but we could help that seller find somebody who's going to want to do a rent to own, and we help them with that process. And then we get them screened for the seller, and we help insert that renter into their property. And, we do get a portion of that non-refundable option deposit as a fee for our service. And we've helped people who do that too. So maybe there's not enough cash flow for you to stick in the deal, but maybe if there's just that break-even point, renters don't care about that, but they're not going to grossly overpay. And I want to make sure that with rent to own, we can, make that well known, is that Americans, maybe around the world, I don't know, but I haven't been to other places like this, but we're payment buyers here. We pay on a monthly, our cars, our phones, all the different things is based on monthly payments. A, because it's easier. B, because, whatever. But if you were to buy a $10 million property and it costs $10 million, but your payment was $1,000 a month, you could afford it. You could afford a $10 million property. You might have to finance it for the next 10 million years or whatever, right? But that's the point. If it's the monthly payment you could afford. So you want to keep the monthly rent with your rent to owns affordable. And that's the key to finding good people. You want to make sure that you're not way overcharging and making it difficult for people to afford it either. So for me, I like to keep my rent really close to market rate. Now, however, with our rent to own, and we're going to dive into that tonight, how we get money above that though every month. And that works really well too. And we're going to do a deep dive into how to do that tonight.
Boom. And so that was the question. Guys, if you want that link for tonight, I see some of you asking, just go to creativefinanceplaybook.com and just however which way you need to hop in there, whether it's waitlist or at the very, very bottom, if you if you scroll down, it'll say, sign me up, become a CFP insider, Creative Finance Playbook insider. And my team and I will message you the link. You can get signed up. And then you'll also be getting some awesome newsletters. We send out weekly newsletters where we drop lots of inspiration. We share inside deals, breakdowns. We also have little PDFs that you can take a look at and implement in your business, whether it's time management, to monthly goal setting, to even how to have a checklist when you're trying to close out a deal. So
yeah, because that's important. You do a creative finance deal and you don't know all the things you need to do. So it's all in there. So, I'll tell you, there are some golden nuggets in that. So I would definitely, if you're looking to get more information and how you're just going to get doing this and how to get started, guys, it's all right in there. Go sign that up for that. Drop into your info, get these emails. Here's the key. All the most successful people, I'm going to break this down real quick. All the most successful people, they all have one thing in common. They're action takers.
Ooh.
They take action in whatever it is. I don't care if you're the best chef. I don't care if you're the best, basketball player, football, whatever that is, right? There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scene where they're taking action, right? So it's all the action that you take, the behind the scenes stuff. So it's getting you prepared. And so gathering all the right information is great and all, but it's all worthless unless you're actually taking action with these steps. So what we found was taking a small series of wins helps get you to that finish line. Right. And it all starts with some really simple, basic things. Don't overly complicate it, but take action on these steps. And next thing you know, one little click could result into life-changing money. And I've seen way too many examples of not us, yes, us, but other real estate investors. One deal could be life-changing money. So how do you get that? It's by taking action. It's not going to be watching YouTube videos or doing all these things. It's to give you the information, but you got to put the car in drive and actually put the gas in and go. And that's what's going to get you there. And if you don't do it perfectly in the beginning, that's okay. No big deal. The fact is you're getting started. And that is the key. Even if you mess up, that's all right. One thing that was key for me to learn from one of my coaches was, if you're dealing with a truly motivated seller, truly motivated, it's hard to mess it up unless you call their dog ugly or their dog or kids or something like that, right? Unless you're insulting, It's really, really hard to mess it up. So take Action Jackson. Oh my gosh, that is your name from now on.
Action Jackson. Yeah.
Oh, that is it.
Where can you get this information? creativefinanceplaybook.com. So, and then I was also going to throw your number. What is the 585
207 2240.
2240.
Modern age, we don't even have each other's phone numbers anymore.
There we go.
Wow, is my name in your phone still Daddy?
No, it's Joseph.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah. Back when the kids had linked our phones. So But yeah, 585-207-2240. Text right now. I can literally send you the link. If you can't go to creativefinanceplaybook.com, we will get you there. Okay, that's what we're here for. We hold your hand to get you that to that next step that you need to get to, and that's what you need to do for your sellers. So we're here to model it for you. And then, yeah, never argue with your seller. There's no need to argue. Apparently, there is a Gulfport, Alabama, and that is a vacation spot.
I have heard of that.
But you're going to hear Roll Tide a lot. Thank you, Brian.
Well, no, they do have some really nice beaches. I get it.
Yeah. And then flyover states. Yeah, I guess I never heard of that term before. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a handful of states. And, even like that, the Midwest, you see a lot of that. But in a lot of these Midwest states, I can say, like, don't sleep on those properties out there, guys.
No.
Ohio, right? Kansas City, Missouri, like that, those little cities, those some of these states, they have some really excellent deals where the prices of real estate aren't overly high, but they cash flow really well. So when we're in South Tampa and I'm looking at a house for $750,000 and it makes $150 a month cash flow, I sit there and I scratch my head. Meanwhile, I could find a house in Ohio for $80,000 and you can make $500, $700 a month. Those are some of my favorite deals. So ideally, I love some of the bigger cities, but the cost of entry could be high. So Jeremy, you are spot on, buddy, on those flyover states. Don't sleep on those things. There's some great deals out there.
Boom. Yeah. So what else we got? So this was great. It was like the first question asked. So the whole scenario of buying with $100 down, is this for a buy and hold, a flip, or a wholesale scenario when you're dispoing your deal?
So with $100 down, what the heck is going on here? So with $100 down, I'm really looking for deals where these are properties that we're going to own, right? You can wholesale some of these seller finance deals or creative finance deals. You could wholesale that. And I'll tell you what, if you bring me a deal where I only have to give the seller $100 down and I've got a turnkey property with a really low payment and a really low interest rate, or even better yet, 0%, I'll pay you a very handsome fee for those. So you can assign that deal if you don't want it yourself. And there's plenty of other people out there like me who'd love to get that deal. Ideally, when we make them, I like to keep them for our portfolio, because here's the thing. There's many ways to make money in real estate, but you want to accumulate wealth while you're sleeping, right? And this is where I call it. So if you're doing fix and flips only, or if you're doing wholesaling only, once you stop doing it, the money stops coming in. Where this is why I love accumulating cash flowing assets, where I'm buying these without using a lot of cash, like I said earlier, without using banks and without using my own credit, and still getting like 2-3% rates and 0% rates, even with rates now being higher. If we could buy those deals and then cash flow on those, that's ideally what I want. I'm not trying to put contractors out of work, but if I could buy a turnkey house that I don't need to hire a contractor to go and remodel, much easier for me too. Right. And
there's still plenty of houses out there that need that work too.
There are plenty of them. We've got a couple right now. Right. But yeah, that's the case, guys. So ideally, that's my favorite thing to do. That's why we love called creative finance. And there's many different strategies to this. With cash, it's either I could pay the price or I can't. And with creative finance, there's 4 factors that we really look into. And the price for me is the least important, where the price of the seller is usually the most important thing. So what's most important to the seller is least important to me. And that's why we could really make a great deal, because I'm looking for great terms. And if I could pay a good price and they're happy, and I could get some good terms and I'm happy, my gosh, you could create magic. And when you could do that,
terms. That was the word that was so confusing to me. It took me forever to truly understand what terms meant.
So terms, that's going to be the terms of your loan, right? So what does that mean?
What are terms?
What is my monthly payment? What is the down payment? What is the term length, right? What is the price I am paying for this product? Is there an interest rate involved, right? All of these factors can all be negotiated. Can I negotiate the price? Sure can. Can I negotiate the payment? On a free and clear property, you can. Even if they have a mortgage, you can, because sometimes they went over. I tell them no.
Wait a minute. You don't have an extra payment to the seller?
For their equity?
Yeah.
No.
You've never done that?
Never once. Ever. So some of you who are saying, well, the seller has a lot of equity, so I need to pay them in monthly payments for their equity on top of their payment. Well, now that deal probably doesn't cash flow.
And if it don't make dollars,
it don't make sense, y'all.
Boom.
So I just got a deal brought to me yesterday, and I'll give you a perfect example. Seller has a mortgage. He also wants to collect money on top of that. He currently has it rented for $1,700 a month. So I talked to the investor who reached out to me. I said, well, if you pay his principal in payments, plus taking over his payment with the taxes and insurance combined, what is your payment? $2,200 a month. I said, and what does he have it rented for? $1,700 a month. I said, okay, well, how much does the seller want down? $50,000.
Run.
I said, okay, so let me get this straight. You have to come up with $50,000 down to lose $500 a month. Where's the good deal? Right? So run from that deal. But that doesn't mean you have to run from it, but you definitely have to
Follow
go
up with it
to renegotiate that
Yeah.
deal, right? And if I have to come up with some cash at closing, I want to know I'm going to make a return on that. So many times I just have to help explain it to the seller that that offer that they've made me wouldn't work. But here's where you don't want to be a knucklehead. Make an offer back to the seller finally now that they gave you the offer, counter offer at what would work, right? Well, I can't do $50,000 down, but if I could have a $5,000 down and take over that $1,200 payment, so where I can make some extra money per month, I can make that work. And the seller might say no. And guess what? They might. That's okay. You could always follow back up with them again. But that's the key. You don't want to put yourself in a bad spot where the seller says yes and you have horrible terms.
Well, I think that's especially for new investors, as that came up in the call earlier I had with some clients. And, they're getting a seller to say, yes, I've got a free and clear house. I'm interested in maybe seller financing it to you. But my new mortgage payment is $3,500. So I want, keyword, I want $3,500 to pay. So my immediate question is, well, how much does that area rent for? And it was like $2,500. So knowing that, now you have to, as you always say, back into your numbers. So if it's renting at $2,500, then you've got to get a payment to the seller for way less because you're covering taxes, insurance, all the things. And
you're going to want to make some money too.
You got to make money. So, but it was a great conversation to really walk through. And that's what I love about our small group support calls is like, we can really dive into these deals and explain the hows, the whys, the ins and outs, because as a new investor, you can get really excited about it. A seller said yes. But at the end of the day, it really does pan out, like using the calculator to be able to walk through and crunch your numbers. And coming from a girl who does not do numbers, I can do these deals. Like I can figure it out, so you can too. So don't get intimidated. I'm an English teacher. I love words. Numbers were not my thing. How many times have I said that? But I can't say that anymore because creative financing makes it so stinking easy that I don't worry about CapEx and all the crazy words and all of the things because we just ask the questions and I just look at it. It's simple math. Either it cash flows or it doesn't. Like you don't have to have this like wizard brain, even though you do have one. I don't when it comes to that kind of thing. So,
well, like we have our family saying, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. So if you can't cash flow per month, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right. So this is where it's important.
Well, it's part because you want to, as a good person, you want to help the seller, but they can't have their cake and eat it too. And it's just going to take some time for them to really come to terms with that. And then also for you to be able to make money. Yeah.
And sometimes they can't come to terms with it. And then we're just not the best fit, which is okay. We can't buy every house.
Yeah.
But there's many times where I want to create that win for the seller, but I need to make sure, this is what's key. I need to make sure that I'm upholding my end of the bargain. So I need to make sure that that payment comes in and month out. And if something happened and I had to replace a hot water tank or my renter paid late 2 months in a row, I need to make sure I've got reserves to make those payments on time, regardless if my renter paid me late or not, because that's not up to me, right? I want to make sure I've got some reserves. So how do you build those reserves? Obviously, we love rent to own because your renter will give you 20, 30 grand to move in. There's some reserves right there, right? But also, too, you want some cash flow because if you're not doing rent to own, you're not doing it right. No, I'm just kidding. I'm teasing.
But you're not, because we've done it. And
yeah,
man, once you go rent to own, you'll never go back.
But once you got some extra cash flow coming in every month, you should be stocking away some of that just for that rainy day. So I think that's really a key, guys. So keep it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. If you need help, which all of us do, that's fine. My cell phone number is out there right on my own Facebook page, 207-2240. Call me, text me if you need some help. We'd love to help you. And then not only that too, make sure you go to our website, creativefinanceplaybook.com, and get all the stuff to get you started. Because guys, it's all on there. How to generate leads for free by using social media. And then the 10 magic questions that we ask every seller in order for them to make us the offer. Because when you do this marketing, people will reach out. You're going to need to know what questions to ask. We've already did all that for you. And I will tell you, we're only giving this for one reason. And that's for you to start taking some action. Okay. So if you're going to do it and do it right. Don't mess up that script. It's spot on.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. If you're currently listening, make sure that you head over to YouTube and give us a subscribe. And if you are on Apple or Spotify, go and leave us a positive review if you love what you're hearing. Next week, we'll be back talking all about how you get paid to buy real estate. So it's just a little echoing of what we talked about today. So we are Jenn and Joe with Creative Finance Playbook, and we're super excited to have you here today listening. So come find us on the socials. And until next week.
Yay. Have a great week, y'all. We'll see you next week. Keep
Do
going.
some deals.